Post-play review, Death Ride, Hafid Ridge. Death Ride, Hafid Ridge. My introduction to the Death Ride series and system by Gronyard Simulations has provided some awesome gameplay experiences. Coming out of my thinking of playing series and an action that I'm playing here right now. This, again, my experience here with Death Ride Hafid Ridge makes me think that the series I hope that the series will prove to be a tour de force in wargame design. So far, I think that it shows incredibly solid game design from beginning to end. Now, despite this being a product of Gronyard Simulations, I am not a Gronyard, so I don't compare this to Tactical Combat series. I don't compare this to Panzer Grenadier series. I don't compare this to the Tank Leader series, and I certainly do not compare this to the original Panzer Blitz Panzer Leader. That just is the way it is. Instead, I pushed my way through this introductory step, meaning the Hafid Ridge game. I pushed my way through this introductory step and find it a mind-blowing game experience. This may very well prove to be as close to a Grail platoon scale game system as I could ever find. I guess I'll talk what's going on here on the board right now, and then talk about just continue with some commentary on the system and series as a whole. Or not the series, because I've only played Hafid Ridge here, but the system as I've explored it so far. So to start zoomed out, this is an action that I'm in the middle of. What do I mean by that? This is, I set up the scenario, the Hafid Ridge scenario. Set up the scenario, the historical German setup. I did not use any of the optional units. I didn't set up and have not used any of the optional units. So this is BP3 here. This is BP2, and that's BP1 right there. And I use the German setup again as given on the scenario card, and then I set up the British forces down here. The only difference is I just noticed the coloring, blue versus, okay, I guess that's supposed to be gray versus red. Okay, hadn't noticed that before. Okay, but the British units start down here on the board edge down here, which is still about, eyeball this, about 6 or 7 more hexes down that way. Okay, so instead I've set the the British forces up here, which is, I started just outside of observation range of the German forces. So set up all the British forces as given in the scenario, just closer to the German battle positions. Then, after setting it all up, so I chose all the obstacles set up there. Then I basically took the board in half like this, and I had one battalion over here. That's this battalion right here. Here's the battalion headquarters. So this battalion, all tanks, I had them set up here, and so I just made a zone, and my action, so these are sitting, and I had the battalion charge, and the battalion, all tanks, are trying to take BP1. And BP1 is defended by only 2 platoons, plus obstacles. So I'll zoom in and we'll talk about what has happened. Very interesting, at least as I experienced it anyways. So I'm doing it this way because that's one action, and when I'm done there, I will probably do a second action focusing on this side. And so this is several turns in. The British have reached the point there, the BP battle position, and I will explain some interesting things that have happened in the course of play. Okay, so I do want to say, yes, the British just charged on the battle position. I wanted to know how a tank battalion would fare against that type of defense. Now, I had the British tank battalion there in a battalion wedge, so I had a lead platoon of a lead company ahead of the rest of its company, and then 2 more companies on the flank echeloned back, and then the battalion headquarters with 1 tank platoon in the rear center of the wedge. And they, like I said, they just charged on here. The first interesting thing to note is that, well, I guess before I talk about how much the British were suppressed, now I will take this. So I said there were 2 German defenders. Those 2 German defenders are an anti-air platoon and a tank platoon. So we're talking probably, I'm guessing maybe medium panzers on the left and an anti-air platoon on the right there. That's it. Now, to bolster their position, very importantly, so the anti-air platoon is occupying a fortification, and the tanks are dug in, and surrounding the position we have wire and mines, and then we have another belt of wire and mines here. Okay, so those are the defenders. Now, those 2 defenders with a fortification, dug in positions, and obstacles, it's very interesting that they were able to suppress a huge portion of the British forces. So this whole stack, we're talking, okay, 2 platoons here, suppressed to level 3. Got 2 more platoons here on the hill, suppressed to level 3. And this whole entire company over here, suppressed to level 2. Now this stack was not suppressed by the ground forces there, but actually suppressed by a ground attack by the German air support here. So that took care of that stack. So a lot of suppression, and not adjacent to enemy units. These units recover 2 suppression levels. So these two, all 4 platoons here, suppressed to level 3, are still only going to drop to level 1 this turn, and they won't be completely free of suppression until the next turn, following turn. And what is, there's just so many nice, one, there's so many nice touches to the design, and 2, all these little touches are what I mean by solid game design from beginning to end. So these suppression levels, this isn't just a good order suppressed like a switch, and the levels of suppression are not simply a simple progression of maybe negative die roll modifiers. There's more to it than that. So for these medium units, the tanks, suppressed to level 3, their attack factors and their movement factors are reduced by 30%. There are percentage calculations for suppression, and there are percentage calculations for firepower. And these percentage calculations are, to my mind, absolutely essential to the game design. And what make it so interesting. And I'm going to be pulling out, either in this video or following videos, future videos, I'm going to be pulling out the interesting little things that happen with that. Okay, but anyways, not just the attack values, but the movement values are influenced by those suppression levels. And interesting that I use suppressed unit. Well, I definitely use suppressed units to fire, and actually got some positive results or caused damage on the enemy using suppressed units, which is nice to see that that's possible. And I'm trying to think. I don't think I did much, if any, movement under suppression, because once you're within 5 hexes of an enemy and you're suppressed, you can't move any closer to it. And so I think these are like 6 hexes away from the enemy, so there's not much opportunity. Hasn't been much opportunity to move under suppression yet, but it is possible, which again is nice, that it's not full movement capability or no movement capability. All right, so a lot of suppression. I mean, if you add in, so we're talking an entire tank battalion, you add in suppressed, 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 suppressed. We're talking the headquarters and 2 platoons are left unsuppressed at this time. That is absolutely a function of having charged right on, but it's still nice to see that that it does work out like that. Okay, beyond that, so a lot of suppression and the decisions involved in that. Decisions involved in what you do with your suppressed units. I had decisions whether I should well, I guess I'll wait for a better example to show. Now, this platoon, yep, finally, this British platoon finally got up on the wire adjacent to the German tanks there, suppressed at level 2 right now. Because he's adjacent to the enemy, he's only going to recover 1 level per turn. But it was interesting to see, as of course it should be, how hard it is to get at one tank platoon, which is on a rise. This right here is right, high terrain here. So they're on elevation, dug in, behind wire and mines, and yeah, there's a lot involved. So this unit got up first and was not killed outright, but just suppressed to level 2. I'm not going, this was not all in the same turn, but by chronological order. So chronological order, these guys all got suppressed pretty quickly in succession. So then the next echelon flowed through them, survived a bunch of opportunity fire. That platoon got up there. End result, suppressed to level 2, but still adjacent. Then this platoon moved up here, survived opportunity fire, and got up here onto the mines. As a result of going into the minefield, took suppression level 2. Oh, actually, I should say before that tank platoon moved up there, and the only reason it was able to probably get up there was this stack here, including suppressed units. So these 2 suppressed platoons plus that platoon, in good order, or no suppression, fired together on the anti-aircraft platoon and suppressed it to level 2, which means that it cannot do opportunity fire. That's what allowed this platoon to get up there. So the platoon moved up there, survived opportunity fire from the tank platoon there, panzer platoon there, but took suppression level 2 after going into the minefield. Then the anti-air platoon that was not able to do opportunity fire because it was suppressed was able to do defensive fire against enemy that move adjacent, and got very lucky. I think they had a +2 die roll modifier and they rolled a 9 for an 11. I think they were on the 2 column and caused suppression level 3. 3 is added to 2, so actually, and that's where I left off with all the action. Those 2 compound to 5, which means that unit was actually eliminated. Like that. So in a sense, with that, the British drive, the first drive, the initial drive, was really blunted. And I mean, the British would have to reorganize to pick up the push again. But what it showed me is that you can suppress from a distance, and after properly suppressing, get up there. Now the Germans are surrounded by obstacles, so go around them or go through them. Probably better to go through wire than the mines up front. The wire is on the flanks and the mines are on the front. Now that I think about it, maybe the wire should be in the front and the mines on the flanks. Or maybe it's something else to try. All very interesting to play through. Here's another thing that was interesting to note. Carrying fractions throughout your firepower calculations. Retaining fractions throughout, considering the first of all, the percentage reductions for suppression, and then the firepower multiples you get from the firepower table here. Means that you can have some very close and important results. In other words, on some of these key combats here, carrying fractions throughout allowed a unit to get to a higher combat column. Okay. To get to a higher combat table or fire table column than if there was a lot of rounding, and especially a lot of rounding down, which the point just being that I liked to watch as I went through the calculations and retained fractions. It was nice to see, well, basically every fraction count is what it comes down to. And I like to see every fraction count. And I saw it. It was meaningful. Okay. Had fun experimenting with like firing with full strength and then moving half your movement allowance. Or I also had some units moving up to half their movement allowance and then firing at a -2 penalty. Yeah, lots of very interesting, fun. So just my impression is, again, a very, very solid design. Rules don't look rushed. They look like they've been well considered and play tested. Just great things. Great things to observe as I take my first steps into this series. Now, I learned some important things in playing, and this includes both this action and the Thinking of Playing series. I don't take time to go back and see if I actually made the mistakes or not, but I know that it's very, very possible that I did make mistakes. So the things I learned is that the British tanks were in reserve. They were in reserve. And I don't know if they fired or not, but when they fired, they should have lost their reserve. They should have lost their reserve status. So when you're in reserve status, you can't be firing away. Also, I caught myself possibly making an error. Again, I don't know if I actually did or didn't, but I definitely caught myself with something. So this German anti-air platoon is a plus unit. The 6 secondary weapon combat strength /6 against a blue dot is the primary weapons factor plus 6 defense factor. The plus there means that this is a German plus unit. And what I caught myself doing was almost mistakenly treating this as an artillery plus unit. And then I quickly caught myself and said, whoa, wait a minute. This is a German plus unit. These are very different multiples here. So yeah, so the German AA unit is a German plus unit, not an artillery plus unit. because of the multiple pattern, for a moment there anyways, I was thinking of the anti-aircraft unit as an artillery unit, but it's not really. And third, this is huge for me, because I went through so many so I have gone through permutations of my understanding of the opportunity fire rules, and I definitely had it wrong before. So to use an example, after going through and working this all out as per the text and the rules, some online reading, primarily that. After working it all out, then I discovered that there is a beautiful play aid in Death Ride, Kursk, Totenkopf, which I have. And I was thumbing through Totenkopf the other day and stumbled upon this beautiful play aid that lays out almost all of what I'm going to talk about. Okay, but back to just considering the Hafid Ridge rules as written. Moving unit. Start here. Okay. All right, moving unit. As a unit moves, if the German player is going to halt the movement of the British unit, the German player, first of all, the German player may respond with one stack against this this unit in this hex. So if this unit conducts opportunity fire against the British tank platoon there, after the opportunity fire, that unit is effectively done for this movement, because that stack cannot fire on this stack again during this movement. But if it moves on, and also it is only from that stack, so after this stack is done, this stack can't then fire at the same unit in the same hex, and so on. One stack responds with opportunity fire. Now, if the British platoon moves on, then another, let's say this stack can conduct opportunity fire, then that stack is effectively done for opportunity fire against this stack during this movement. And then if the unit moves one more, if the German unit chooses to conduct opportunity fire, it's done. And then when the British tank platoon moves adjacent to the German tank platoon, the German tank platoon cannot conduct defensive fire only because it has conducted opportunity fire against this stack. So the German tanks cannot conduct defensive fire against this stack because those German tanks have already conducted opportunity fire against that stack. Or if it held its fire for opportunity fire and then the British tanks moved adjacent, then it could fire with defensive fire. Okay, and then effectively, once that unit is all done with its movement, if you're going to use play aids to remind yourself, all of these come off, because the reason why they come off is because when the British player starts moving another stack like that, then it starts all over again. This unit can fire opportunity fire. Moves on, that platoon conducts opportunity fire, etc., etc. for the movement of this stack. Okay. Now, this is also very important. Now we have a moving stack. As a matter of fact, let's say there are 3 platoons moving. Moving stack of 3 platoons. So it moves, and if this platoon chooses to shoot or fire opportunity fire against this stack, the firer can choose to fire against one unit in the stack or any combination of units in the stack. I think as long as they're the same type. Okay, but what it doesn't do, and what I may have very well have done wrong in a video, is it does not fire, it doesn't have the choice to fire individually at each unit. It can fire at one or any combination. So essentially, it can fire against a defense of 6, a defense of 12, or a defense of 18. Okay. Then, well, let's keep the moving stack. Now we have stacked Germans. When British move, I think the German player can declare this stack conducting opportunity fire. And I think this may have been one I didn't cover. Okay. Okay. It's not well, okay. So we have one stack and we have one unit, different hexes. Definitely units or stacks in different hexes may not combine their fire for opportunity fire. And we know that opportunity fire must be conducted one unit or one stack at a time. Now, I think in this context, a stack, or I guess another way to look at stack in this context, is 2 or more units in the same hex. So I think if there were 3 German units in the stack, I think that all 3 units could conduct opportunity fire against one or more of these medium targets, tanks, or 2 of them could conduct opportunity fire. So I do think that, let's say 2 conduct opportunity fire, and then they are, essentially separated, so to speak, and they're done with opportunity fire against that stack. And then if that stack moved 1 more time or 2 more times, I do think the remaining unit, it's in one stack, can conduct opportunity fire as a single unit. Then it's done against this stack. That's how I take it for now. So I wanted to get opportunity fire straight. It is important because there is so much latitude involved here. Players can do so many different things in so many different orders, in so many different ways. It makes it incredibly interesting. Play of this game can be a brain burner, but in a good way. And finally, solid game design. What's nice about each particular mechanic is that nothing is overwrought, or nothing that I've encountered so far. Okay, there's a ton of higher level rules and optional rules, etc., for me to still get to. Okay, but so far the rules are not overwrought, and yet when you put them together, it's an incredibly complex whole. For example, this is probably a good example of what I was talking about. As I was carrying out this attack, advancing, trying to get through the obstacle belt, trying to suppress the enemy to get to my final assaults, halfway through the sequence of procedures or operations, I realized that I made a major error in the sequencing. Understand, when I say error, I mean I would have vastly increased my chances of success right here with these two, with all this action here, if I had just sequenced things in a different way. The sequencing here is not a fixed sequence of play. These are, the player chooses, when to fire to suppress, when to move, to fire before moving, or move to fire before moving, or move before firing. Even if you have an air support mission, when to use that. So you have all these choices to make. And on top of that, it's not just, in my experience, it's not just, it's not just different. It's actually significantly different. And again, I'm saying, when I was halfway through my sequence of suppressing, moving, firing, follow on fire, I realized that if I had just done things in a different order, it would have vastly changed, the probabilities I was facing. And that's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating.